Unexplained Disappearance. The bone-chilling secrets exposed of the Jamison family's fate. Claire stood at the edge of the old hunting grounds in Red Valley, Oklahoma, her heart pounding like a drum. The Jamisons, the family she'd once known so well, had vanished without a trace. In a town that thrived on whispers, the absence of the cheerful laughter and shared dreams of her sister's family felt like a dark weight, smothering the air. What had been a tight-knit community was now shrouded in an eerie silence, suffocating with dread. Folks murmured of an ancient curse, a shadow lurking in the woods that hungered for the very bonds that united families. She scanned the canopy of trees, their branches casting eerie shadows that danced like ghosts on the forest floor. The Jamisons had gone into those woods hoping to build a family retreat and escape, a promise. Now, the woods were menacing, echoing with secrets. Local sheriff, a man she'd known since childhood, seemed more haunted than ever, his days filled with fruitless searches and a cloud of guilt hanging over him as thick as fog. Each passing day without leads left him gripping onto bottled despair. "Something's not right here," he muttered one evening, his voice trembling with uncharacteristic fear. "It's the land, it's always been twisted." Claire felt a chill crawl up her spine, echoing the sheriff's unease. The woods had changed, they were alive in a way she couldn't quite understand. The locals' former friends, now reticent neighbors, offered their help. They gathered at the local diner, swapping stories soaked in trepidation and shared fear. As laughter fell silent in the town, Claire couldn't help but feel the unsettling chill in the air, thickening around her like a winter's frost. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The deeper they ventured into the woods, the more Claire felt the pulse of the past, each step echoing with history, of families torn apart and whispers of betrayal. Time slipped away as the shadows grew, thick and palpable, the trees standing watch like sentinels of dread. The air felt electric, charged with unspoken fears and unfulfilled dreams. And just when Claire thought she was finally grasping the truth, a flicker caught her eye, a glowing figure among the trees that looked just like her sister, smiling yet sorrowful. The encounter sent her heart racing, a lump forming in her throat. Had the woods driven her to madness, or were those the cherished memories of the family she sought to find? As the night deepened, the community convened beneath the vast expanse of stars, sharing tales that tugged at their heartstrings. Each voice wove together a tapestry of fear and hope, yet Claire felt the fabric of their unity fraying. Lightning split the sky, a clear call to action. Then, as she turned to peer deeper into the woods, shadows shifted, churning with life. Figures moved just beyond her sight, a pulse of movement that sent her instincts soaring. What if the stories weren't just tales to keep children in line, but something darker, a part of their reality? With dread pooling in her chest and breaths growing shallow, Claire felt an undeniable pull. To face the darkness, to reclaim the light, she'd have to confront the legacy of her family and the land. But would it herald salvation or despair? As she stepped forward into the embrace of the unknown, uncertainty loomed larger than the trees themselves. The thickening silence screamed for answers, and in that moment, Claire knew they were close, very close to revealing the Jamison family's fate. The air thickened as Claire stepped into the woods, the whisper of leaves underfoot almost a warning. She tightened her grip on her flashlight, its beam slicing through the shadows like a lifeline. The distant thunder rolled, matching the quickened rhythm of her heart, an urgent reminder that time was slipping away. Each step pulled her deeper into the haunted embrace of the pines. Memories of shared laughter and campfire stories drifted through her mind, but those thoughts quickly morphed into shivers as a chilling breeze swept through the trees, carrying with it the scent of decayed pine needles and something else, something sour and bitter. Claire wrinkled her nose, needing to shake off the feeling that she was being watched. "Claire!" A voice from behind jolted her. It was Sheriff Miller, striding forward with an urgency that cut through her fear. His face, usually steady, was now stricken with dread. "You can't just go wandering in there alone. I have to. I can't just sit and wait. This is my family," she insisted, her own voice trembling. "I saw something it looked like. Please, just listen to me. The further you go, the less likely we'll be able to find you. This place, it holds dark secrets." The sheriff's words rang in her mind, reminders of the stories swirling weightlessly among the townsfolk. Dark shadows of lost souls. The cursed whispers of the land. Each story wrapped around her heart tightly, squeezing until she could barely breathe, yet, the flicker of hope the sighting of her sister drove her forward. If there was even the faintest chance Claire could unravel the mystery of the Jamison family's fate, she couldn't turn back. "Let me go at least to that ridge at the edge. I need to see," Claire insisted, giving the sheriff a pleading look. They exchanged a tense moment, the weight of shared memories lingering thick in the air, but finally, he relented. "Fine. But stick close. I can't lose anyone else, not again," he warned, his eyes glistening with unshed thoughts. Together, they moved cautiously, navigating through the dense growth. Every sound felt amplified: the eerie rustle of a squirrel darting through leaves, the sharp snap of twigs as they stepped, and in the distance, the whisper of water flowing oddly against the otherwise muffled silence. Something was out there, just beyond the veil of trees, and Claire felt it in her bones. The tension hung heavy, making her skin prickle. As they climbed, a cold draft billowed past, wrapping around them like an ethereal embrace. Claire shivered, not just from the sudden chill but from something darker lurking just beneath the surface. As they reached the ridge, her flashlight flickered, the beam dancing erratically before settling, illuminating a small clearing. "Look!" Claire gasped, pointing. The shadows seemed to swirl unnaturally, and amongst the woods was a faint glow emanating from an old, weathered cabin, its structure barely visible through the trees, yet it beckoned with an inexplicable pull. Sheriff Miller's expression hardened. "No. That place has been abandoned for years." "But..." His voice trailed off, uncertainty creeping in. They approached slowly, the sense of something waiting to be uncovered deepening. Inside the cabin, the whispers of time felt like 1,000 voices urging them closer, wrapping around them with a palpable tension. Then, a sudden crash echoed from within, a sound so abrupt it made Claire's stomach churn. The door swung wide open, revealing darkness inside, almost as if it were breathing. "What was that?" Sheriff Miller's voice trembled, glancing at Claire with widened eyes. "I don't know. Should we check it out?" she whispered, a thrill of fear racing up her spine. As they stood at the threshold, the air grew colder, a palpable heaviness enveloping them. Claire glanced back at the sheriff, a silent agreement hanging in the air between them. With a deep breath to steady her nerves, Claire stepped inside. The darkness seemed to swirl, shadows flickering across the walls like memories long forgotten. And just as they crossed the threshold, the cabin door slammed shut behind them with a thunderous echo, sealing them in with whatever secret lurked within. A cold voice echoed from the shadows. "You should have stayed away." Heart racing, Claire spun around, adrenaline flooding her veins. The answer to the Jamison family's fate hovered in the chilling air, but would they survive to uncover it? In the depths of darkness, confusion descended like a thick fog, and with fear tightening around her, Claire wondered just how far the mystery of the woods would take them. The cabin's interior swallowed them whole, the air thick with dust and despair, a tangible reminder of years lost to time. Claire's flashlight struggled against the oppressive darkness, illuminating grotesque shapes that seemed to writhe just out of reach. The shadows whispered, blending into the chilling voice that had echoed moments before. "Who's there?" Claire called out, her voice trembling despite her efforts to sound brave. The response, if there was one, slipped silently into the heavy air, leaving only the sound of her heartbeat hammering against her ribs. Sheriff Miller stood close, his expression a mask of conflict. He hesitated before reaching for his radio. "We need to get back up," he murmured, but the radio crackled in defiance, the static masking any chance of communication with the outside world. His brow furrowed, anxiety etched into every line of his face. "What's happening?" Claire asked, her pulse quickening. Seconds felt like hours, and the stagnant air around them thickened, almost suffocating. "Get us out of here." "We can't leave," he said, his eyes darting to the shadows huddled in the corners. "We need to know what is going on first." The temperature plummeted further as if the cabin itself were a creature, hungry and alive with stories it yearned to share. Claire's breath turned to mist, cold forming visible puffs that floated before her. She shivered, the sudden chill crawling beneath her skin, igniting every nerve. "What about my sister?" she whispered, fear lacing her voice. The name hung between them, a stark reminder of why they'd come. She could be in danger. "Let us search the cabin. If she's here, we'll find her," the sheriff replied, although his tentative tone betrayed his uncertainty. They moved deeper, Claire's flashlight beam illuminating bits of broken furniture, old photographs whose edges had curled into the air. A toppled chair lay draped in spiderwebs, shadows danced across the floor from jagged beams above, creating an atmosphere where even the simplest sound seemed omnipresent. "Look at that," Claire said, pointing to a wall covered in faded newspaper clippings, all connected by string. Desperate headlines screamed about disappearances, hauntings, and strange sightings in the woods surrounding them. The Jamison family was among them. "This is it," Claire murmured, lost in the echoes of fear encased in paper. They knew the people who lived here knew something. Another crash echoed through the cabin, this time accompanied by a low moan, a sound so haunting it froze the blood in Claire's veins. "What was that?" she gasped, heart racing. "Stay close," Sheriff Miller ordered, stepping protectively in front of her. They peered into the darkness, straining for even a hint of what lurked just beyond the light. Suddenly, a figure darted past the window, too fast to capture. Claire felt her breath hitch, eyes wide with horror. "Did you see that?" "I did," Miller breathed, his grip tightening around his flashlight. Then came a sound unlike any other, a familiar voice matching the eerie echo from moments before. "Help us!" Every fiber of Claire's being screamed to flee, but her feet remained rooted, dread crushing her resolve. "That voice, it's her," she stammered, heart pounding as she turned toward the door, now seemingly impossibly far. Another crash. The walls trembled, dust raining down like tiny tears from the ceiling. The cabin creaked menacingly, as if warning them to leave. "Claire, we need to get out of here," Miller shouted above the cacophony, but even as he urged her, the darkness whispered back, relaying secrets only the walls knew. "Stay, help us!" Claire's mind raced, the struggle between the undeniable call of her sister and the raw instinct to survive waged war within her. "I can't leave her," she gasped, desperation clawing at her throat. Miller grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the door, but she broke free, racing into the deeper shadows, chasing the broken, pleading voice. The walls closed in, every heartbeat ringing loud in her ears. The darkness thickened around her like a living entity, almost savagely, tugging her away from reason. "What are you doing, Claire?" Miller's voice clamored, but she was already too far gone, drawn by something more profound than fear, a flicker of hope in the vast unknown. Claire stumbled as the shadowy figure flickered before her, hauntingly familiar. She reached out, breathless, only to hear the voice slip back into the depths, further than she could follow. And then everything went still, silence enveloped her. The air turned leaden. Shadows coalesced, twisting as a shape materialized. "You shouldn't have come here." With that chilling warning, Claire knew the depths of dark secrets were not just stories. They were alive, and her efforts to uncover them might cost her everything. What lay behind those secrets? What fate awaited them in the suffocating silence? Claire's heart raced, pounding violently in her chest as the shadow took form, its features obscured by a veil of darkness. She felt fear wrap around her like a vice, squeezing the breath from her lungs. The figure seemed to pulse with a life of its own, a swirling darkness beneath a calm exterior that was anything but inviting. "What do you want?" Claire's voice trembled. She fought to stand tall, yet the weight of despair threatened to drag her down. The figure moved closer, a swirl of shadows undulating around it, transforming into a ghastly visage, a pale face with sunken cheeks and hollow eyes. The resemblance was unmistakable. "Help us," it echoed, the words distorted as if filtered through layers of pain and suffering. "Claire! Get away from it!" Sheriff Miller shouted, breaking the tense silence, but the warning came too late. Claire felt as if the ground beneath her was crumbling away, her focus narrowing to nothing but the figure before her. "Please, my sister, I came for her," Claire implored, her voice filled with urgency and desperation. "Tell me where she is." The figure locked its gaze onto her, and for a fleeting moment, Claire saw a flicker of recognition. The chill in the air intensified, the shadows pulsating like a living heartbeat. "Too late, they want you," it rasped, its voice heavy with sorrow. The walls shuddered at the ominous words, and Claire felt an almost electric pull, allowing fear to surge through her veins. She stumbled back, feeling the rough wood of the cabin scratch against her skin, the dark whispers growing louder, more chaotic, pressing in from all directions. "We have to leave," Miller urged, voice slicing through her mind. "Now!" Before she could respond, the air thickened, and a chorus of disembodied voices joined the fray, crying out in anguish, "Don't go!" Each voice was distinct yet blended into a chilling melody of torment that seeped into Claire's bones. "Sheriff!" Claire's eyes darted frantically to Miller. "We can't just leave. My sister might be here." Her heart ached, torn between loyalty to her family and the primal urge to escape this nightmare. Miller's expression hardened. "There's something wrong with this place. We don't know what we're up against. Then we fight." Claire shouted, adrenaline spurring her forward. She had to face the darkness, she couldn't give up on her sister. She took a deep breath and stepped closer to the shape, determination igniting the fire in her belly. "I will find her, I will help you." The figure recoiled slightly, as if her words stung. "You cannot help the lost," it hissed, its voice trembling with anger and despair. "Only become one of them." Suddenly, the temperature plummeted even further, the air vibrating with a deep, haunting resonance. Shadows writhed and twisted, forming tendrils that snaked toward Claire, wrapping around her arms and legs, pulling her closer to the ground. "Miller!" she screamed, thrashing against the binding darkness, panic flooding her thoughts. The shadows grew dense, suffocating her, blurring the very edges of reality. I can't breathe." Barely able to move, the pressure tightened like a noose. Just as Claire felt herself slip into the void, she grabbed a splintered piece of wood from the floor, driving it into the shadows. A shriek reverberated through the cabin, sharp and near-human, causing the darkness to recede, if only for a moment. "Claire, I'm coming!" Miller shouted, battling the tendrils gripping her. He lunged forward, using his flashlight like a weapon against the encroaching dark. As light sliced through the gloom, the figure screeched, morphing into an amalgamation of faces, all twisted in horror, mouths agape and silent screams echoing in Claire's skull. The cacophony echoed, building into an unbearable frenzy. Were those souls lost to the night? Souls that had fallen prey to this cursed place? "You must hurry. They will come for you next." The figure shrieked before dissolving into a flowing fog, dissipating into the shadows. With renewed clarity, Claire grabbed Miller's hand, their united strength pushing through the thickening dread. "We need to find her. We can't leave without her." They dashed deeper into the cabin, the walls reverberating with ominous thuds that sent vibrations through their bones. Shadows clawed at them, tempting despair, and each step felt heavier, more treacherous than the last. As they moved into a room at the far end, Claire's heart raced again, not with fear but with a gut-wrenching recognition. An old mirror hung precariously on the wall, the glass clouded but somehow familiar. Scattered around it were remnants of childhood torn dolls and mangled toys, pieces of a life long gone. Claire, Miller whispered, his voice trailing off as he stepped closer to the mirror, eyes widening. A figure stood behind them in the reflection, small, frail, and achingly familiar. "Claire, help me," the mirror echoed, just as the darkness surged, swallowing their cries in an insatiable maw. What truth lay behind the reflection? Could they face it together, or would they be ensnared in the web of secrets that gripped the cabin once and for all? As darkness flickered close, silence loomed, pregnant with sinister potential. With a sudden rush, the air around them seemed to shimmer. Claire felt the familiar pull of gravity shift, a magnetic tug drawing her toward the glass. She steadied herself, heart pounding louder than it had before. "No. We can't get caught up in whatever that is." But even as she protested, she found herself unable to tear her gaze from the surface. The child in the reflection looked so much like her sister, Emily. Heartbreak and dread clawed at her throat as she leaned closer. The urgency of her sister's plea wrapped around her, engulfing her in an icy grip. "Think, Claire!" Miller shouted, yanking on her arm. "We need to go." His voice broke through, strong yet filled with worry. Yet, the deeper Claire stared, the more lost she became. The reflection changed, twisting and writhing as a shadowy figure emerged behind Emily. "Help me!" Emily's voice, now layered with echoes, seemed to reach out from the depths of the mirror. "Please, Claire, don't let them take me." The dim room reverberated with unearthly whispers. "Let her be, join us." The voices rose in harmony with the shadows, weaving an intricate web of deceit and longing, searching for prey. "No!" Claire screamed, anger coursing through her. "I won't leave you, Em. I promise, I will find you." With a rush of defiance, she pressed her palm against the glass, feeling its chill seep into her skin. It was as if barriers were screaming to be breached, and maybe she would break through. "Claire, stop." Miller grabbed her shoulders, shaking her gently. "This isn't a game. If that thing gets you." Before he could finish, the shadows around them surged forward, hot and hungry. Miller's flashlight flickered, strobing against the darkness, but the figure in the mirror just laughed, a chilling, echoing sound that fueled Claire's desperation. "I'm here!" Claire shouted, voice fierce against the pounding of her heart. "I'm not afraid of you." The figure morphed again, revealing countless faces in torment. Skin stretched taut over bones, eyes wide with terror. Each face was a warning, but Claire pressed her palm harder against the cold glass, willing it to yield. Suddenly, the mirror cracked, fatigue buzzing in the air as a surge of energy swept through the room. The heartbeat of the cabin pulsed around them, syncing with the rhythm of dread. In that moment of stillness, Claire caught glimpses of her sister, vibrant and young, smiling, pleading for release. "Release me." Emily's voice was a soft whisper now, swallowed by the cacophony of shadows. "Claire!" A panic-stricken shout broke the moment. Miller was pushing her away from the mirror, urgency in his eyes. "We need to back up. We can't fight this." Claire resisted, scratching at the crack as dark tendrils began to seep from the fractures. "No. I can feel her, she's right there." Desperation surged, and she pressed her body against the glass, trying to reach the phantom of her sister. Each pulse of the shadows felt like a heartbeat, its rhythm alive and insatiable. Then, just as swiftly, the faces shifted again. Another figure broke free from the fog. The familiar outline of her sister appeared, but twisted, shrouded in darkness and fear. Claire's heart cracked wide open. "Get away from her." With a roar of fury, Miller swung the flashlight, creating a burst of light that split the shadows. Claire felt a rush of hope, but it flickered dimly. The darkness screamed in outrage, twisting violently, reshaping itself into a monstrous force that whirled around them. "Claire, we need to run." Miller's grip was firm, pulling her backward. "No!" she cried, watching as Emily's pleading face dissolved back into the mirror, the reflection becoming simply glass once more. The ground shook, and the cabin groaned like a living entity. Walls warped with anger, shadows thick and oppressive. In that moment of terror, a single, chilling thought settled in her mind: they were facing more than just a curse on the cabin. They were entwined in a darkness that sought to claim them both. "Get ready!" Miller shouted. "We have to find a way out now." Would they escape the malevolence looming around them, or would they succumb to the whispers of the shadows? Each breath was a countdown, pushing them toward either freedom or deeper despair. And then everything erupted. The door flung open, revealing a darkness even more formidable than inside, an expanse filled with shadows beckoning them out. What would they confront next? The cold outside world, or something much more sinister waiting just beyond? Claire stumbled backward, heart racing as the darkness swallowed the threshold. Miller held her hand firmly, his grip a lifeline in the overwhelming terror. "We can't stay here," he urged, his voice nearly drowned by the impending chaos. "Do we even know what's out there?" Claire shot back, glancing at the abyss beyond the door. The shadows shifted like a living thing, undulating and beckoning, their whispers curling around her like smoke. "Maybe it's worse than this." But Miller's eyes were fierce, determination etched across his face. "We don't have a choice. The more time we spend here, the more those shadows will pull us in." And with that, he surged forward, dragging her along. As they plunged into the darkness outside, Claire nearly screamed. It felt alive. The air was thick, almost tangible against her skin, heavy with malevolence. Twisted trees loomed like sentinels, their branches gnarled, moss hanging like ghostly drapes. It was as if the forest itself held its breath, waiting for something sinister to happen. "Where do we go?" Claire panted, fear wrapping tight around her chest like a vice. Each step felt like stepping deeper into the void. "There's a cabin not far from here. If we can reach it, we might be able to find supplies or a way to fight back," Miller shouted, eyes scanning the shadows. A faint glimmer of hope flared momentarily in her chest. But the woods were merciless. Dark shapes flitted between the trees, too fast for her to comprehend. "Miller, do you see that?" Claire whispered, peering into the inky blackness. He nodded, jaw clenched. "Stay close. Don't look back." Just then, the whispering intensified, the voices spiraling around them like a tornado of sound. "Join us, help us!" It was Emily's voice, laced with the anguish of countless souls trapped within the dark. Claire's heart shattered a little more. "Emily!" she cried out, but the words were lost in the growing tower of shadows that began to converge toward them. They raced through a thicket, branches grabbing at their clothes, scratching at their skin. Miller's flashlight flickered and dimmed, the shadows seemed to devour the light. "Keep moving," he shouted, his breath ragged. But the whispers morphed again, clearer now, calling Claire by name, entwining with her thoughts. Tears pricked at her eyes. "I won't abandon you, Em. I won't." Each step was a decision between her sister and a reality that threatened to consume her whole. Then, a horrible sound broke through the atmosphere. A bone-chilling laughter echoed, reverberating off the trees like a death knell. The ground trembled as something massive stirred within the depths of the blackness, something that hungered, that knew their names. "We have to run faster," Miller urged, realizing the growing danger. But just as they pushed through the last of the trees, a sinister shape loomed before them. A figure cloaked in shadows stood at the edge of a dilapidated cabin, its features indistinct, merging with the void. It pointed a long, bony finger toward them, beckoning them closer. "Come," it crooned, voice like silt sliding through fingers. Miller halted, eyes wild with fear. "We can't trust that thing. It wants to lure us in." Claire's instincts screamed at her to turn and flee, retreating back into the woods. But there was still that pull, still that voice inside her, stubborn and soft. Emily. The figure began to glimmer, morphing briefly into the image of Emily, her hair blowing in an unseen wind, her eyes shimmering as if through tears. "Help me!" Claire felt herself take a step toward it. "No! Claire, don't!" Miller lunged forward, his grip tightening painfully around her wrist. The shadows swirled violently around them, roaring with anger. "You cannot escape!" Embrace the dark, and as cold fingers of mist reached out in grasping tendrils, Claire and Miller stood frozen, caught in a moment where every heartbeat echoed with impending dread. "What do we do?" Claire gasped, desperation written across her face. Then, as if in response to her question, the cabin door creaked open, a silver light spilling forth the kind that promised both danger and salvation. But just as they hesitated, a voice, low and ominous, whispered from within. "Join me, together we can reclaim what was lost." Would they cross into the unknown and face whatever awaited them, or retreat into the gnashing teeth of the shadows? The moment hung heavy in the air, and Claire felt the weight of choices pressing down on her as the darkness surged. In that heartbeat, panic twisted her thoughts. Could she really bear to follow the light, knowing what lay beyond? "Run!" Miller's voice sliced through doubt. But would they flee as the whispers rose to a maddening crescendo, or would they dare step toward the light and face the truth waiting just beyond the threshold? Claire's instincts kicked in. She tore her gaze from the beckoning light and forced herself to focus on Miller. His expression was a mix of fear and resolve, a lifeline amidst the chaos. "We need to go!" Claire shouted, adrenaline thrumming through her veins, but still, the light pulsed, warm and inviting, contrasting with the icy dread surrounding them. What if that's the way to save Emily? Claire's voice trembled with desperation. Shadows flickered menacingly, and the figure within seemed to lean closer. "No, Claire. We don't know what that thing is. It wants to trap you," he pleaded, eyes wide with panic. The mere thought of losing Claire to that darkness terrified him. The laughter rose again, a haunting echo that filled the clearing. It felt like chains rattling, memories of the long-lost haunting them, replaying moments that shouldn't have been theirs. "I need to help her," Claire whispered, her heart aching. "Think for 1 second. Miller's frustration cut through the noise. "This place is a nightmare. We can't afford to trust anything here." His voice pulled her back from the seductive allure of the light. Suddenly, the mist shifted, swirling like smoke around them. Claire's heart raced. What if the thought crept in? What if they could save Emily, somehow? With another piercing shriek of laughter, the shadows lunged, reaching with cold, bone-like fingers. Time and reality warped around them. One moment they were standing at the cusp of light, and the next, they were being shoved violently against the forest floor, the air thickening with fear and despair. Miller grunted as he fought to keep them steady, using his weight to shield Claire from the advancing shadows that clawed at their clothes. "Hold on!" he shouted, pulling her up as they scrambled away from the cabin, disoriented but instinctively trusting the path back. But the ground beneath them shifted, roots and branches rearing up like serpents, determined to keep them from escaping. "Claire, we need to keep moving," Miller urged. But Claire stumbled, heart pounding, her thoughts a mix of fear and hope. "I can't leave her." Tears streamed down her cheeks, blurring her vision. The shadows danced closer, whispering sweet promises laced with Emily's voice. They were suffocating, swirling around her like a tempest. "Claire, please." Miller's desperation was raw. He grabbed her shoulders, shaking her slightly. "You can't lose yourself in this. Emily would never want this for you." His words stirred something in Claire. She forced herself to breathe through the terror, remembering Emily's laughter, her resilience. "You're right. I can't get lost." Just as they started to break free, a distant rumble echoed through the woods, shaking the trees. The shadows surged forward with a furious intensity, trying to drag them back to the reckoning that lay within the light. "We're almost through," Miller shouted, sprinting forward. They plunged deeper into the woods, navigating the chaos around them. The sounds of the forest roared, battling their escape, as the darkness howled in rage. "Do you think we lost them?" Claire gasped, glancing back nervously, but the shadows remained an ever-looming presence, swirling behind them like a relentless storm. "I don't know." Miller's breath caught. Just then, a blinding flash illuminated the path ahead, causing their hearts to leap in sync. The silver light flickered again, pulsating with a desperate urgency. What now? The cabin loomed behind them like an ominous ruin, the door now creaking wide as if inviting them back. A voice echoed from within, low and seductive. "You can't run forever. I will find you, Claire. We need to keep moving," Miller urged, sweat dripping from his brow. But Claire stood frozen, the fear of being lost radiating from her. "Can we really leave her?" Claire whispered, uncertainty clouding her vision. "Miller? What if we don't have any choice?" In that moment, they were faced with an impossible decision: confront the sinister shadows or risk everything for a sliver of hope that flickered in the light behind them. As tension gripped the air, Claire felt a storm brewing within her. Maybe there's a way to fight back, but just as they resumed their frantic flight, a deafening roar erupted from the shadows, shattering their resolve. The ground trembled, shifting beneath their feet, as the forest erupted into chaos. "Run!" Miller yelled, but the essence of the night was already shifting and bending around them, clouding their escape. What emerged next would test everything they knew about survival, trust, and the lengths one would go to for love as the shadows closed in. What lay ahead, a deadly embrace or a flicker of hope? The night deepened, and the answer drew closer with every heartbeat. Miller's heart raced, pumping adrenaline through his veins as he pulled Claire along. The shadows were relentless, hot on their heels, determined to choke the last wisps of hope from them. "This way!" he shouted, grabbing her hand and dragging her through the thick underbrush. Branches snagged at their clothes, tearing at the fabric as if the forest itself wanted to keep them trapped. Every desperate breath felt heavy with the weight of dread, a sensation crawling over their skin. They zigzagged away from the cabin, hoping to lose themselves in the labyrinth of trees. But as they ran, the echoes of Emily's laughter ricocheted around them, a sickening reminder of what they left behind. With each mocking peal, Claire felt the pull of the light behind her grow stronger. "Miller, I can't!" she cried, her voice raw. "What if we're leaving her? What if we're Claire?" Miller's voice boomed through the chaos, fierce and urgent. "You think this is what she'd want? You think she'd want you to throw your life away for a voice?" Something tightened in Claire's chest, mixing with guilt and fear. But she clenched her jaw, forcing herself to focus. She was running for Emily, not away. "We need to find her. We can't abandon her." Barely glancing back, Claire caught sight of shadows slithering around the trees, coiling and twisting. They were alive, sentient. The darkness itself was a predator. They circled closer, like wolves stalking prey. The ground vibrated ominously beneath her feet, and panic surged, making her stumble. Miller caught her by the arm, pulling her upright. "Keep moving. We can't stop." His eyes burned with desperate determination, but Claire saw the flicker of fear underneath. It surged between them, unspoken, but pulsing with every heartbeat. Suddenly, the shadows burst forward, sharp and jagged like dark knives cutting through the night. Claire gasped, yanking free from Miller's grasp. "We have to face the light," she screamed, a swell of emotion spiraling inside her. She wanted to scream for support, for grounding, but here, in this choking dark, she felt utterly alone. "Claire!" Miller shouted again, but it was too late. She spun around, facing the eyes of the light that reached toward her with almost palpable warmth. It shimmered like a million fireflies, dancing just beyond her fingertips. "Emily, I'm coming." She launched herself toward the light, heart racing, hope igniting within her. The shadows lunged as if sensing her intention, but she had made her choice. "Emily." Time warped. Claire was swallowed by the glowing embrace, pulling her in like a soft blanket. But the warmth turned molten, and the edges burned, searing her skin. She felt twisted between two worlds, surrounded by a cacophony of voices, some sharp with laughter, others filled with wails of despair. Claire. Miller's voice cut through the haze of sound, but it slipped away as if swallowed by the shadows. A moment of pure chaos exploded around her as the light flickered, then dimmed. "What do you seek?" A voice intoned from the depths, smooth and chilling, laced with a power that compelled her to answer. I want to save her." Claire stammered, but even as she spoke, doubt crept in. What if this was part of their trap? What if they were tricked again, bound to a fate worse than death? The voice chuckled, a low, melodic sound that made the hair on Claire's neck stand. "Then face your truth." It was then that the shadows converged. Tendrils grasped at her wrists and ankles, pulling her deeper into the light, merging the sweet warmth with a cold that shook her to the core. She felt herself unraveling, threads of her very being beginning to fray. "What is happening?" she shouted out, voice hoarse. "Miller." But there was no answer. Only the mounting roar of chaos, a storm magnified by fear. And then, she recognized the shadows. They were forms, familiar and twisted, faces of those they had lost, seeping out of the darkness. Emily was among them, her eyes pouring forth desperation. "Claire." Came the ghostly echo of Emily's voice, a sweet whisper battling with the cold. "Help me." Claire's breath hitched as clarity penetrated the fog. Her heart clenched in anguish. There was more to this than she realized. In that moment, the world around her exploded with blinding light, and Claire faced a choice that might alter the fate of everyone she loved. Could she summon the courage to embrace the truth, or would she become yet another lost soul in this nightmare? As the shadows lurked ever closer, awaiting her decision, the storm within her raged on. What lay ahead would demand everything she had, but would it be enough? The blinding light enveloped Claire, folding around her like a shroud woven from the sun. It pulsed with energy, drawing her in while simultaneously hurling her deeper into the shadows that coiled close. She gasped, the breath catching in her throat as her surroundings morphed into a whirl of color and sound, a haunting symphony echoing with despair. "Emily!" she shouted again, her voice wrenching from her chest. But the only response was the dissonance of fading echoes, twisting through the dark. The shadows drew closer, their forms solidifying into familiar faces, each one a phantom from her past. Claire's heart raced as she recognized her childhood friends, lost and lifeless, eyes hollow and filled with longing. "No. This can't happen. Not like this," she whispered, fighting against the sensation of dread creeping back in. "Join us," they murmured, their voices like a chilling breeze rustling through dead leaves. "We've been waiting, Claire." A surge of panic gripped her, sending shudders through her limbs. She tried to retreat, but invisible hands reached out, binding her in place, weaving strands of fear around her heart. "I don't want this," she cried, but her words seemed swallowed by the darkness. Suddenly, the blinding light reappeared, battling against the encroaching shadows. In the brilliance, Claire glimpsed a figure, Emily. Her friend's face was contorted in agony, a desperate plea etched into her expression. "You have to fight, Claire. Don't let them take you, don't let them take me." Fury spiraled within Claire, a raw and awakening strength. She focused on Emily's face, fighting the chill that threatened to consume her. "I won't leave you. I'll find you," she yelled into the abyss. The voice from the deep returned, smooth and mocking. "Face your truth, Claire. What are you truly willing to sacrifice?" Claire felt her heart contract again, the weight of the question pressing down on her. The shadows encircled her tighter, the faces morphing between bitter familiarity and twisted hatred. "I'll sacrifice anything. Just let Emily go." In that instant, she felt the world shift, the fabric of reality quaking. A thunderous roar echoed from deep within the shadows, as if they were alive, an angry beast awakening. The faces of the lost glanced at her with eyes now pooling with tears. Somewhere in the distance, she caught sight of a small glimmer. A door? A portal? It pulsed like the heartbeat of the earth, beckoning her to approach. Heart pounding, Claire strained against the darkness, plunging toward the light with resolve. But the shadows recoiled, launching forward like spears of night. Claire raised her arms, adrenaline surging. She wouldn't let them take her, she wouldn't succumb to the same fate. Claire. Miller's voice echoed, faint but fierce, breaking through the chaos. In that moment, she felt tethered to him, grounding her in a world that spun out of control. The shadows hesitated, recoiling as if they feared hope. Claire seized the opportunity, sprinting toward the door with all her strength. The air crackled around her, thrumming with energy as she pushed through, desperation fueling every fiber of her being. She burst into blinding light, feeling the warmth rush over her skin, pushing back the cold tendrils behind her. But just as she entered, a cold hand grasped her ankle, pulling her back into the darkness. Gritting her teeth, she fought against it. "No! No!" she shouted, eyes wide with determination, but the grip was relentless, dragging her closer to the biting chaos. "Claire, you have to make a choice." Miller's voice sliced through her fear. "You can't save everyone. Save yourself." The shadows snarled, pulling tighter. Claire's heart ached with the knowledge of what could be lost, the faces of those she loved twisted in torment. She glanced back at Emily's pleading eyes, wide with sorrow. "Your truth." The voice echoed again, louder, more demanding than before. Claire screamed, "I choose to fight for hope. I choose to believe." In that instant, an explosion of light pierced the darkness, radiant and pure. It consumed the shadows, their shrieks filling the air like a shattering glass. They disintegrated, a festering nightmare disbanded by light, but as the shadows peeled away, something darker loomed in the periphery, a new form emerging, far more sinister than the others. Claire's pulse quickened, realization dawning like a chilling fog. As the figure stepped forward, the air crackled with an ominous energy. It looked like a memory, but its hollow eyes held no warmth. "You think this is over?" it sneered, voice dripping with malice, and Claire, realizing they hadn't faced the worst yet, stood frozen, heart pounding against her ribs. What had she truly unleashed? The shadows weren't gone, they were just waiting for the right moment to strike again. What more was there to confront in this realm of nightmares? The truth was only just beginning to unravel. With a final surge of adrenaline, Claire's will unfurled like a banner in the wind. The shadowy figure loomed closer, its pallid face unmistakable, her own mother, lost to the grasp of despair and darkness, a twisted imitation of the woman she once knew. "You thought you could escape me?" it hissed, the words curling around her heart like barbed wire, tightening, suffocating. "No. I refuse to let you control me." Claire shouted, the fury swelling in her chest, igniting a fire she hadn't known was there. She pressed forward, step by trembling step, desperate to reclaim the light she knew flickered within. Miller stood at her side, fists clenched, unwavering in his resolve to protect her even as fear clawed at his throat. "Fight, Claire. Remember who you are," he urged her, his presence a beacon against the overwhelming darkness. The voices crescendoed, melding into a chorus of anguish and grief. "You belong to us," they wailed, and every sound felt like chains rattling her bones. But Claire had seen struggles and shadows twist in her life before. "I'm not afraid of you," she yelled, finally defining the boundary between fear and courage, the refusal to yield no matter the cost. "Let them see, Claire. Let them join us." The figure coiled closer, shadows pooling at her feet like venomous snakes, reaching, grasping. But Claire no longer felt small. She took a deep breath, her chest swelling with memories, her sister's laughter, her mother's love, all woven into who she was. "Emily." Claire's voice rang out, unwavering. "I'm coming for you." With that declaration, she plunged toward the hollow gaze of her mother's reflection, and as she surged past the figure, she felt warmth radiating through her veins. The shadows recoiled, as if stung by the illumination of her resolve. Around her, darkness began unraveling, twisting until it shed its grip on reality. "This isn't your home," Claire murmured, her heart pounding a relentless beat of purpose. "You are nothing without our fear." Then, she felt it an anchor. Mist pooled at her feet, melting back into the earth as light cascaded down, illuminating the cabin beyond. She caught another glimpse of Emily, just out of reach, and it drew the very breath from her lungs. "Miller!" she gasped, realizing the tether that had woven itself tightly around them. "We can pull them back together." "No!" His voice thundered with urgency, "You can't do this alone." But Claire had found her footing amidst a storm. "We have to believe together. We can face this." As they locked gazes, a rush of understanding passed between them, a storm of hope coursing through their limbs. The tendrils of darkness began to swirl wildly, the shadows screaming no. As their grip was severed. "Take my hand," Claire cried. And in that moment, with the fabric of despair ripping apart around them, both seized the light, fierce and unyielding. The room exploded with a brilliant blaze, flashes of color danced and swirled like the dawn breaking through a long night, washing away the remnants of despair. Claire felt herself rising, warmth wrapping around her like a soft, comforting embrace. Then she was inside the light, and finally, she heard laughter, unchained and free, the joyous echoes of her sister. "Claire! You found me!" Emily's voice, a hymn of relief and forgiveness, fluttered through the air, rapturous and pure. "You came back." Claire reached out with shaking hands, overwhelmed by frantic energy. "I won." Let go again. Tears streamed down her face, tasting of joy and sorrow, bittersweet yet liberating. In the radiance that consumed them, the agonizing weight of thousands of lost souls' schism also faded into tranquility. Silhouettes emerged, their forms softening into the familiar outlines, the lost returning to the light. "Thank you for remembering us," a gentle voice echoed, sloughing off the last shadow. The darkness fractured, falling away, as if disillusioned by hope's unyielding flame. "We did it!" Miller shouted, holding tight to Claire's trembling shoulders, breaths mingling in exhilaration. "You broke the curse!" Together she panted, looking around. The woods felt different now, quiet as dawn settled in, a new beginning creasing the horizon. As the first rays of sunlight spilled into the clearing, they grew brighter, revealing the beauty of their surroundings that shadows had once twisted. "And what lies ahead is ours," Claire whispered, the heartache of the past fading with each pulse of the light. In the distance, the remnants of the haunted cabin crumbled into dust as if time itself sought to erase every mention of despair. But the stories of love and loss, resolved and remembered, lingered in the hearts of those who remained. With that, Claire turned to Miller, pride swelling in her chest. "We've reclaimed so much more than I could have imagined." "Let us go home," he replied, a warm smile breaking through the night. Hand in hand, they stepped forward into the embrace of a new dawn, leaving behind the shadows that once threatened to consume them. And just like that, they would carry their memories as a reminder, a testament that together, they could face any darkness. Now that you've experienced this thrilling and emotional conclusion, it's time for you to take action. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will hit close to home. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. It really makes a difference in spreading these tales. We're counting on you to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. We want to hear from each and every one of you. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support is crucial. Only true fans understand the importance of boosting our community through these actions.